Hello and welcome to Chatz, a television podcast, season 13, part 6, Chatzerless. This is the 6th series in our season on shows misfortunate enough to be canceled before airing 13 episodes, which we have been dubbing 13 under 13. My name is Alan, and I'm joined by a petite Caucasian man with no priors. It's Magellan.
I don't even know which part of that to jump on, you know?
Yeah, pick any part. Pick anything.
Well, I guess it's just because I'm so timid, as might be suggested by that description of me, that I don't even know where to start the joke making.
Well, you started here because we're at the beginning of the podcast, and everything you say when it intended
Can
to
and
be
will be held against me.
In a court of comedy. Yes. We needed some
Did you see,
assistance talking about the end of... Yes, go ahead, Habib.
Did you see that Steve Harvey is the new Judge Judy?
No, that's awesome. Really?
It's Judge Harvey.
Judge Steve Harvey. That's perfect. That's such a good choice. I want to see his judgy face constantly. Great.
It's kind of the same as his Family Feud face, I think.
Naked Grandma. I just watched Naked Grandma recently. I think about that clip so often. Alan, play the clip.
Something a burglar would not want to see when he breaks into a house. Rob.
Naked Grandma.
Naked, huh?
I don't want to see that either.
I know you're right, okay? Nobody wants to see a naked grandma, but what are the chances of you breaking in the house and running up into your grandmama naked? Looking for the naked grandmama in the house, outside, in the woods, on the blanket. That's the occupant person that's there.
Anyways, we're also joined today by a very special guest who's going to help us talk about the finale of Chatzerless and of Powerless. This is somebody who believes that the sex is the best part of a cult and believes that superheroes get to be a little silly in their off-season. It's Six from Scanline Media.
Hey, so I had two great bits that I started one of them and I was like, wait, right, on this podcast, I don't get to talk till I'm introduced. So first of all, Magellan was like, I don't know how I'm going to jump on this. White people can't jump. We all know this.
Okay. New remake with Jack Harlow. Okay.
And the other one is there was a real beat where you were like, did you know that Steve Harvey is the new judge? And I was like, he's the new Judge Dredd? No.
God, what a choice that would be.
I am the law.
As exciting as him being the new Judge Judy, probably.
It's him saying, "Show me the law," and then shooting someone in the head.
One of those is a lot more violent than the other one, and it's up to you to guess which it is.
Boom.
Bub. It's him loading a shotgun. I really want to rewatch that 2012 Dredd movie. I remember liking it a lot. Six. Thank you for being here. I'm excited to have you on Chatz.
So much. Yeah.
We've been trying to have you on 13 under 13 for quite a while. Since New Amsterdam, I don't think we've seen you.
Yeah. So I was on that New Amsterdam map. Still, by the way, still have the last episode downloaded. Still haven't seen it because I was on the second to last episode.
You'll have a rainy day where you want to watch it. I think so.
I keep having times where I'm cleaning out that folder and I'm like, but maybe, and I don't delete everything.
It only takes an hour. I mean, come on.
But like, the possibility space of that hour not being taken up, you know, like anything could be in it. I mean, I know what's in it because I listened to your episode on it, but you could have lied to me. Wouldn't be the first time.
And Six is also the wonderful co-host of the Creature Quorum, where we talk about monsters from Monster Hunter and Pokemon, and the soon-to-be revived Garnet Wager, where we talk about reality game shows with a twist.
Yeah, it's all recorded. We just have to, put it together. It'll come out before this does, so.
Yes, it will. I'm looking forward to listening back to it and all the fun edits that are going to come with the first episode of our reboot. But tonight, we're talking about the end of Powerless, the final 3 episodes. Six, you graciously jumped on this journey by watching all 12 episodes of Powerless, and I want to open by asking you how that experience was for you emotionally.
I mean, so I think this show's kind of boring.
Yeah. Okay.
And I don't know. Like there are bits and pieces I liked, and I think actually like my favorite episode of the show is in this last batch. So that's nice. But like overall, it feels very. I don't know. It's a show that like. It's like, oh, of course this got pitched, and of course it got approved, and at no point does any of it feel very much like a passion project to me. And to me, that's, that's very, very conjecture-y. But like, I don't feel the love, and I think its absence or the absence of that feeling really is what condemns it a lot.
That's a really good take. I never thought about like this. Doesn't feel like it came from people who wanted to make something uniquely good. It's just like an algorithm basically determined that like these things could be fun is what it kind of feels like sometimes.
Yeah.
Throw a little Office in there, throw some DC in there. I guess that's a good show.
And obviously you'll have talked about all 9 episodes by the time, people hear this. I've only heard, you're on the first 6, but there's another episode in the can. And I don't want to, go over too much ground again, just a few things to go back over. So I actually, Magellan, if you could help me out here, I prepared 2 little sound bites.
Yeah, you got it.
First of all, doesn't make much of an appearance in these eps, as in doesn't make an appearance in these eps, but I really like Jack-O-Lantern, especially because his Citizens of Gotham delivery every time made me think of a different Citizens delivery. This is clip 01.
Sincerely, Corey, North Dakota. Whoa, the entire town of Corey, North Dakota decided to email me. That was nice of them. Citizens of Corey, thank you for your email. Hang on. Let me get the cheat.
And so that just played in my head every single time this guy goes, Citizens of Charm City, and it made me like him.
Wow.
Oh, that's awesome.
Jack-O-Lantern is strong bad. Wow. It never clicked in my head until just now. That's so correct.
Yeah.
I mean, he's, just doing bad villain puns and then committing villainy based on those, like, in order to enable further puns.
Yes.
When are we going to get the Office comedy set in the Homestar Runner universe? That's what I want.
Whoa, I mean, it's kind of what the emails were, wasn't it?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
But I would love more of that work. I know the brothers Chapman, the creators of that, have gone on to work on proper Western animation and are too big and too cool for Strong Bad now. So that's a real tragedy.
That makes me sad.
Well.
And then another thing is just on your coverage, I think you guys had a lot of, I don't have a lot of nice things to say about Alan Tudyk, I'm afraid. I'm part of that gang, but I don't want to, I'm sure you've heard enough of that from the audience.
We really have.
So I actually named this file 02 Tudyk to kind of throw Magellan off the scent. I actually want to talk about the music in this, because that's another thing that there were some comments about how generic the music was, but there was one track I really liked. If you could cue it up.
Damn you, Ben Queen!
It's just gonna keep going, by the way.
Yeah, I'm gonna tastefully fade it when I feel like I'm waiting for the part.
Hold on, yeah.
So this was actually just my love story to 13 Under 13. I know you're moving on after this, and I think you're moving on for the right reasons. I am one of the people who encouraged you to go back to it, because I think it's a fun format and it creates some good opportunities, but it is rough watching a bunch of shows that just aren't very good and you don't like very much.
Yeah, we've received a ton of feedback. We just announced 2 episodes ago that we are doing the big vote and the big ranking choice voting system for season 16. And I've gotten people who've said, both like you, I wish you guys would just do 13 Under 13 for a while. We have 7 shows left after this, and I'm still looking forward to doing those. And then I've literally also had folks reach out and be like, if you keep doing 13 Under 13, I'm going to stop listening, because I'm tired of you guys hating every show you watch, and I never want to torrent a bad show that's only 10 episodes, because why would I do that? Why can't you guys just watch shows that people want to watch and keep up with? So this takes all over the board. And then what it's made me learn, not to get too meta here, is that you just have to do stuff that's fun for you, and people will listen and hopefully find fun in that, and not keep trying to change what you are for other people.
And I wonder how much of the divide is people based on how much they actually like watch along, right? Like you know, I've been on chats before. Folks who remember me, which I, you know, probably only a small percentage, but those of you who do, I'm not a big Western television person. I don't watch very much of it, and so very often I'm listening to chats about shows that I haven't watched and don't want to. And it's easier for me to keep track of that when the shows are short because they keep getting canceled.
True. And it gives you enough time to just sample a show and then get out. Whereas we've also had people who are like, oh, you guys are still watching Babylon 5. Oh, it's really long. So, like I said, takes all over the board. But as for tonight, we are finishing Powerless with our discussion of the last 3 episodes.
Can I say, though, by the way, Wendy is terrible.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
No,
Not
yeah.
a great character.
I wrote in my notes at some point, I think that the actress who plays Wendy, like, is probably funny and good. And John and I were right. She is, like, in improv and stuff. She gives off that vibe. Yeah. She just gets the worst fucking scripts. She gets the worst jokes.
Yeah, she's really hung out to dry by this show and its scripting every time. It's just the role they've written for her is terrible.
Yeah. Making the sex pest a woman does not make it more funny or okay. Simple. Okay, we're talking No Consequence Day up first. This is a Maggie Bander script, and it was directed by Joe Nussbaum. This episode aired May 12th, 2017. But Jalen, bring us into it. What happened in No Consequence Day?
In this episode, in the wake of Lois Lane's death, Ron tells the team about a theory where Superman will rewind time to save her, and there would be no consequences. Just when everyone starts to take advantage, Ron becomes a dog owner. Emily and Wendy get in trouble with the law. Jackie takes up day drinking. Teddy makes a power move, and Van gives Bruce a piece of his mind. Things start to go awry when the theory may not be as sound as they were thinking. What did we think of No Consequence Day?
I think it makes a lot of sense to pull on, like, DC things that, like, most people are going to recognize. This is like the old Superman movie, you know, the classic "you may not change human history, fly around the earth" thing. And I think it's really smart to pull on this for a pretty unique episode concept, and also, again, material that people are going to have more familiarity with. I think the episode itself is more of a mixed success, which, you know, I guess I could say at the end of every episode of the show, so it's worthless to say. Sorry, I apologize.
No, I don't think it's worthless to say. I think that sometimes the show actually hints at cool ideas, and I agree that this is a great, like, DC universe concept to play with. What if you had one day where, you know, sort of like The Purge or something, you could do whatever you want. My problem is, even though, like, I was listening to a podcast recently where they were talking about it was a more civilized age, and they were talking about, like, why and how we suspend our disbelief about certain things, and, like, people who do, like, the cinema sins thing of, like, these rules don't make sense. Like, you only really should do that when the show is not successful in getting you to believe in the fiction, right? This episode is full of moments where I'm like, that's not what anyone would do in this moment. Like, that just doesn't make any sort of realistic sense, and I'm not buying into the fact that you're like, I would just get some dogs and, like, hang out. Like, what? You would do so much more wacky shit that would still fit in the realm of sitcom, and yet you chose, like, very basic things to do. Magellan, I'm curious, though, how you felt about No Consequence Day.
Oh, it was my favorite episode of the show. I thought it, like, actually used a DC universe concept to do a thing and do some character stuff, and it was, like, a little meta and a little absurdist, and those are the things that I tend to like in sitcom. So this was one where I was like, okay, if every episode of Powerless was like this, I think I would have a generally, like, vaguely positive feeling about the show. And to me, this is an episode that, like, maybe objectively is not the very strongest or very funniest, but it's an indicator that, like, maybe had the show gone on a little longer, the median episode might have looked a little bit more like No Consequence Day. And to Six's point about the labor of love thing, you know, this felt like somebody who saw whichever one of those Superman movies it was where Christopher Reeves is like, let me get the time going backwards. Like, somebody grew up with that and was like, I want to do a funny take on that. I don't know if that's the case or what, but it felt like it had a little more affection for DC stuff than is typical on the show. So I liked it.
I believe it's the 1978 Superman movie, the OG. If my quick Google search is correct.
That sounds right.
So there is. Sorry, go ahead, Zex. You have a take?
I just feel like the big problem is sort of something you've hinted at, Alan. Is that like there is a like, okay, you would do way more ridiculous stuff than this, and they start off by showing the most ridiculous example, right? Like when they're like, oh wait, is this even real? It like cuts to the news, and Stephen Hawking has murdered Neil deGrasse Tyson for being annoying.
Show's punching down so hard sometimes it's ridiculous to me.
It's
like
a very crass and easy joke, and then to follow that up with like, okay, he just murdered that guy, and then your characters are going to be like, you know what, on this day where nothing matters, on like time rewind purge day, I'm going to get arrested. It's like, well, that's a stupid way to spend your day.
Also, I wrote this immediately, why are cops arresting people today?
Well, they don't. It's not like not everyone buys into this. This is something that they have come up with because they're the very smart like lab scientists. So very smart people have thought of this, but most people are just like, oh, it's just a normal day. You can't just commit crimes.
I guess, yeah, and they have to acknowledge this happens sometimes in this world. So like, I don't know, cops still have a job to do.
Yeah.
For better.
What would you both do on a no consequence day?
So I love the point that you made in your notes, Magellan, about this, which was that these characters don't just do they don't do fully absurd things. They just live the lives they should have been living mostly, like or like give themselves the opportunity to take a break, in general.
Yeah, because like Danny Pudi's character he speaks his mind, and Vanessa Hudgens' character like lets her hair down a little bit, and there's stuff like that where it's like, well, maybe if you had a dose of that on the day-to-day, you would like your life more. Which is an interesting theme in this one.
I mean, I'd probably have a panic attack.
Yeah.
It's like, because like if you think about it, right, like what makes us us? We are the sum of our decisions and our memories and our thoughts, right? And so if you have a version of yourself that you know is going to be erased, you're like, I'm going to die. There will be a version of me that lives on, but when this day ends and the rewind happens, the me that's here is going to die, and I would stress sleep about that.
I'm living a dead life,
no.
Right?
Oh God.
Or not? We're always living a life that has a time limit on it, but this is a 24-hour time limit. Like,
well, and everyone has the like, and at least I'll be remembered or whatever. You will not. Period.
Right. And it's different than like the Groundhog Day thing, where like you get to have the memory of the day that you like drove off the cliff or whatever. Not that that's the thing I would do, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is scary. It's like scary in the same way as thinking about whether you would go through the replicator or not, the transporter or not.
They talk about that. I can't wait for Truck Chat season 6. They fucking do it, bud. I'm so fucking excited for Truck Chat season 6. Yes, they literally talk about that. It's so good. Anyways, so this is to answer your question. Yesterday, I was at my parents' house, and my sister asked my dad some hypothetical she saw on Instagram. It was like, would you rather get $5 million or meet Jesus for 60 seconds? And he was like, that's a stupid question. Why would I answer that? Obviously, I would take the $5 million because Jesus is with me all the time. Very Christian dad answer.
What a fucking based answer. That's awesome.
like wearing like the jersey with the cross on it, slam dunk. Good work, my man.
My sister did not appreciate how based that answer was, though. I agree. But it brings to mind for me, like someone in this episode mentioned like, oh, I'm going to die because what I get to do is see heaven for a day and then come back. And then I was like, well, wait, Buffy season 6, we know what happens. It goes badly when you have to come back. I was in heaven. Exactly. Buffy, for people who don't know, sorry, huge spoilers for Buffy, I guess.
Giant Buffy spoiler. Oh my God.
Giant Buffy spoiler. I'll put some sort of warning before it. Hey, seriously, what you're about to hear is a major spoiler for season 6 of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. This is your warning. You have about 20 seconds you can jump ahead, and we'll get right past the in-depth description of one of the key plot arcs of season 6 of Buffy. If you still haven't watched that show, is it worth it? I don't know. Anyways, that's your warning. Buffy dies in season 6 or in season 5.
Season 5, yeah.
She dies a couple of times.
She dies many times. It becomes like a running gag. But in season 6, she's resurrected, and they're like, why is she so sad? Why is she so distant? We realize that she was in heaven all along, and they took her out of heaven, which is the saddest thing ever. Whatever. So I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't just die and be like, okay, I got to be in heaven for a day. I would, I don't know, just like probably, yeah, just take all my money out of the bank, fucking throw it around, eat some insanely good food, kiss a stranger, like do a harmless crime, you know, just like do something weird and just steal a car, just drive it through the streets for like a couple hours. If I get into an accident, oh well. You just want to basically do it in a way that you don't have to spend the day in the police office or the hospital.
Right.
Because then you burn the day. That's the tension of Emily and Wendy's plot.
The worst thing would be is if once time got rewound, you knew it got rewound. Because you're just like, oh god, how did I spend that time? And you're, and you know what? And then you would have this conversation we're having right now, and it would be like, you know, knowing me, I bet I had a depression nap.
Yeah, we might have all lived it. We actually probably all lived it. We don't know anymore.
Oh gosh.
Alan went out and tried a new Mexican place and was like, this is great, but I'll never remember that, so they'll never go back there. Yep. And Magellan and I just sort of sat around and thought about how awful this was, you know, sort of on a grand cosmic scale.
Yeah.
Fetal position under the desk. And I think that these like ideas are what makes this episode entertaining. Again, I'm just like annoying, and I kept rules personing it like, oh, this wouldn't make sense. Why are there cops? Why is this happening? Why is this happening? I do like that, for example, Van says, this is not fun to me. I'm so rich that I just do what I want to do. This is not cool. The show actually knows what it's saying, that like the 9-to-5 people, all they would do is, it's what happens when you take a day off on a weekday. They're like, I don't know how to go do some errands and do something. I treat myself nicely. Whereas the rich CEO guy is like, I don't know, keep doing the shit that I do every day and step on people's backs to get what I want. Sure. So I like that about it. I'll give it that positive in the corner. And I appreciate characters like Jackie who are just like, yeah, don't bother me. I'm relaxing today. Don't worry about it. She doesn't get too much to do other than tell people she's not working today, which is fun. I did think that Teddy's whole like becoming the boss guy thing was entertaining. It's like some Hudsucker Proxy shit. Like if you just bumble your way to the top, within 10 minutes of this episode, he's like, oh, I'm the boss now. That's a fun comedic thing to me. I feel like that's like almost a Simpsons-esque joke or something.
Yeah. It's also fun just to see how this entity like takes Teddy, who is fighting and rebelling against it and expressing frustration, and transforms him into like an instrument of that institution.
Yes.
Like watching that corporate machine operate in his plot was kind of fun.
Yeah, he gets this little like short story. Sorry.
Yeah.
No. Go.
That's all I was going to say. It's a short story where he gets to be the boss and then realize the consequences of being a boss.
And I feel like you also get two good beats out of that sort of help the show overall, which is funny because we're about to end. But first of all, you get the moment where after he's settled in and they bring in a bunch of files and they're like, oh, hey, this is Emily's work that you'll be doing in addition to your other stuff. And it is a good moment of, something they have done a terrible job of showing so far, which is Emily does a job. Helps to see that. And I also like having Teddy be this, like, what they show here is like, oh, what we really value, like in a position of leadership, what the corporate leadership really values is someone willing to be an asshole, right? Because like some of Teddy's advice is probably good, right? Where it's framed in a way where he's probably right. But like when he's first in his office making a call, he's just like, thanks for all these bullshit reports. And that's him doing a, air quotes, good job. And it's just him being negative about something he doesn't understand,
Yeah. Because he's like, the managers don't do anything, they're useless. And then when he becomes manager, he's like, uh-oh. The thing that they do is fire people. They do the hard job.
But also it's often the unnecessary job that management, especially in big corporations, often runs on gratuitous cruelty.
Correct. That's the engine that powers it.
By the way, thank you so much for the brief segment on your second episode on Chatzerlist 2 about HR. Thank you. This fucking myth. They're just here to protect the company. That's all it is. Don't need to do it again. You already did it. Thank you, though.
Human research. The human is the company. We know this, but there's still value in in an actual functioning HR department. It's just that as they exist in the United States, for example, they protect the company from the employees. Some jokes. I want to talk about some funny jokes real quick. Wendy's a criminal. We just learned that not only is Wendy, this is where we also learned that she's like rich. Yeah, this is the episode where we learned that Wendy's the heiress to a fortune.
Right, and it's this random. I get annoyed about these like tell don't show kind of character backstory things where Wendy and Emily are in the jail cell together, and it's like, oh, you were from that rich summer camp, and it seemed like you're having some. It's like, what? Hold on.
How long have they known each other? We never talked
about
this.
Why are we like inventing all these weird random things? Stop it. I don't like stuff like that. I don't know why it bothers me so much.
Because I think it's especially like in the middle of a season. It's like, what does this have to do with anything? I didn't learn this. This doesn't inform what I know about Wendy so far, other than like the part of the reason she doesn't give a fuck is that this job literally doesn't matter to her. She does it for shits and giggles.
Right. It just feels like a retcon, I guess.
And it's also just a thing that like you can get away with sometimes on a show, but on like. Generally speaking, in a show that has had a lot of has spent most of its time trying to tell jokes and often had a very hard time doing so, having your character sit down and talk about a funny thing that exists that they won't show you does sting a little.
Yeah, that's super true.
And in them getting arrested, they get arrested, by the way, for possessing weed because Wendy like beats up her weed dealer and like takes a bunch of weed, and then it falls into the hands of a child from Emily, and they get arrested. Weed being illegal in Charm City is just funny to me. Like, it's like seeing gay marriage be illegal. You're like, oh, they'll figure it out someday.
It's also, it's the 2017 thing of it. Weed legalizing actually fairly recent.
Yeah, true.
And then also, I do like specifically the detail of like, are you like smoking marijuana in broad daylight? And she's like, no. She throws it, and he's like, and you threw it at a bunch of kids? You're definitely going to jail.
And one of them just picks it up and starts trying to smoke it. That was pretty funny. Yeah, I'll give it up.
Yeah.
They also, speaking of 2017, make jokes where Wendy's like, oh, I'm rich. My parents made a bunch of money on fracking in the ivory industry, and I'm like, holy crap, I'm dying. I can't believe how much time and life has. There's another reference to like evil rich people from 2017, like the dentist thing in the second episode, the dentist who shot the lion, where I was like, Jesus Christ, 2017 was a different era of the universe. It's so weird. But these are, again, like we've said many, many times before, the show dating itself in sometimes awkward ways.
Mm-hmm.
But the twist of this episode is that Superman, Lois Lane died, so he wants to resurrect her, but wait, he's dating someone else. Oh, I guess we're actually not going to rewind time. Oh no. Mm-hmm. It's the reaping what I sow tweet, made into real life. Me reaping. I'll look it up later.
It's funny. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Oh, me sowing. Haha, fuck yeah. Me reaping. Well, this fucking sucks. What the fuck? And then it's like, oh, actually, he's still going to do it. We're fine. We rewind time. But some of us remember what happened a little bit.
Mm-hmm. I kind of wish they had stuck with it, because it's just such a macabre, like, head fake of a joke of Superman going to Lois Lane's funeral with another woman. Like, that was really funny to me, and I wanted them to live with the consequences of these things. But
I hear you, and I partially agree. I do, however, think the best joke of the episode is the fact that it is, in fact, that a supervillain shapeshifter impersonated Superman to go to his girlfriend's funeral and grab the ass of a model in front of camera is incredible.
Me as a shapeshifter. Fuck you, Superman. Just the pettiness, the time and energy it took to coordinate that also. Like, where was Superman when this happened? Was he sleeping? Oh boy. Yeah, so they do actually rewind time, and we see like one of Ron's dogs comes back. Oh god, what's going on? Van, having confessed that he does respect Bruce and wants his affection and his care, feels bad about it. But never mind, we're gonna undo that. And I thought this was the best like button on it was the last thing he says before the rewind is, guys, I figured it out. Bruce Wayne is Batman, because you forget, because it's the most well-known secret amongst readers, amongst people who know comics, and then you forget that in this world they still don't know that, and that it's a twist, and you're like, oh fuck, what the hell? You guys just figured it out. But
also the way he discovers it is, there's always classically I think this is from the animated series that this is most used, but like, there's a bust in the library that you like push on a certain way and it opens up the secret entrance, and he's like, I'm going to the library, and you know how much I hate books. It's just, some pretty good comedy in this one.
Yeah. Stray notes from the episode, folks?
I had a couple. There's a cute little cold open with the Flash, and we're waiting for the Flash to run by.
Yeah,
that's nice.
He takes Teddy's water. Thanks for the water. Thanks for the H2O.
Writes on his shirt. It's nice. The theme music, like coming in as the cold open is ending, it like makes any joke work. I feel like, because it just comes in with such intensity. I don't know.
You can hear the build before the episode actually hits it.
Yeah. I didn't love the gag of like, okay, it's no consequences day, which means that Wendy is gonna kiss Van. But I did like Alan Tudyk's little like face twitch as he's coming to terms with what's about to happen. I thought that was good.
You think Alan Tudyk's a good actor?
I'm not going to open that up right now.
I want to say for the record, I am not in general anti-Tudyk. I just don't love his performance on this particular show.
Agreed.
Totally. I think that's where Ryan was at with it too, but
and especially in the pilot, he's the most heightened. Like, and when I say agreed, I mean like I think there are parts of it I like, but I just watched A Knight's Tale recently. He is amazing. Alan Tudyk is so funny in that movie, and he's great in almost everything else that he's in. He just is playing a like cartoon version of himself in this. That's not doesn't always land at all.
You just watched A Knight's Tale?
Like a month or two ago, yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
I told you. It's wonderful. It's a little too long, but if they cut it, then it wouldn't be as fun. So it's kind of a conflict.
Wait, is that the Leonardo DiCaprio We Will Rock You one?
It's not Leonardo DiCaprio.
It's Heath Ledger.
Oh, you're right. Okay, you're right. I saw it once, and then I mostly just remember the cover, where he looks more like Leo in that.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, he's got.
It holds up really well. Every performance in it is awesome. It just doesn't keep it long. Anyways, what were we talking about? Alan Tudyk.
There was a line that made me laugh, which is when Teddy tells off the guy from corporate or whatever. He says, "I wanted to tell my boss the same thing, but I'm afraid of candor." That was pretty good.
Nice.
I thought at first that when Ron Funches calls the last pug Ron Jr., it seemed like that was dubbed, but then he keeps calling Ron Jr. later, so maybe not.
Yeah,
but
that's weird.
I'd have to rewatch it. It seemed like it was dubbed, and I was sort of like, well, what was the original punchline that they replaced it with something so benign?
I mean, it would be really funny to name him Ron Sr. instead.
Oh,
that would be pretty good.
I love that.
Those
Thanks.
are my notes.
Ask Six Detmoron to hire me. I'll write for you.
Well, I'm gonna hire you and make you do a bunch of work, and then you're gonna be like, "I'm sleepy. Can I take a nap?"
What else is new? I'm always sleepy.
That's my secret, Cap. That's all I have. Let's get into the second one, yeah?
Yeah.
It's Win, Luthor, Draw, episode 11 of Powerless. This one was Paul Mather's script, and it was directed by Rebecca Asher, and it aired June 16th, 2017. Magellan, what happened in this episode?
In this episode... Now, do we want to do this one next? Or...
I do. I want to talk about how this is... Yes, I want to talk about them in the order that we watched it, because I watched them in this order.
Oh.
This was supposed to be a finale.
Yeah, it feels like one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So let's talk Win, Luthor, Draw, and then we'll acknowledge the elephant in the room.
Okay. In this episode, when an alien attack damages the Gotham headquarters, Chairman West delivers some unfortunate news to Van and Emily. In an effort to save the company, Emily's efficiency may make everyone a target. Meanwhile, Jackie gets a shocking surprise that will change her life.
This is my favorite episode of the series.
Yeah, we're firing on the cylinders now. This one, I got the chills watching it, not for good reasons, but just like, oh god, this would have been such a good finale. Fuck, why did they air the next one later? Why did this happen? Did you have clarification on this, John? Did we look at? Oh no, the clarification is that this did air last.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't think that these aired on television at this point.
That's what it is. So this is June 16th. Van of the Year is May 26th. So it's actually listed as episode 11 incorrectly on every service, but aired in the correct order, or on the internet at least.
It seems like, looking at the wiki at least, that Van of the Year and When Luthor Draw went up at the same time on demand.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
They both. Yeah, from Wikipedia, they both went on demand on May 19th, 2017. Whereas,
okay, great. These are both wrong.
Whereas No Consequences Day went up on May 12th on demand.
Okay.
So episode 9 was the last one to actually air on television.
It's super awkward that this is listed as episode 11 then out of 12 because it's a finale.
This is clearly the finale. Yeah.
It wraps up plot threads that we didn't even think about. It's got great comedy. It's got DC Universe hooks. This is a good episode of Powerless. Just like nothing shocking or surprising or remarkable about it other than like, if it ended like this, I would have been like pretty satisfied. Of course, the last live action appearance of Adam West before he passed away in June of 2017, which is wild. I guess it's a good role for him to go out on, like getting to, to the will our heroes escape the risk of firing, or will they be dredged forced to work another day here? All that stuff. He's talking to a plant. We're making senility jokes. It's fine. I think Adam West seemed like a good sport about all of this. He's doing the voice. I never had a huge fondness for him. I never really watched the Batman 60 series other than like clips and episodes here and there. But he is a fun cameo if you're going to have a cameo in this as like the boss, similar to how, wow, A to Z also does this, except they do Rashida Jones. What the fuck? Wait.
It's like there's some sort of formula.
It's almost like Ben Queen. No, I'm just kidding. I know he just worked on the show in the first episode.
Hey Ben, we're getting canceled. You're used to this. What do we do?
Throw in a cameo in the last episode. Make them the boss's boss. Call it a finale, and then air the second to last one last. So even though this one's like really fun, my main note that came up over and over again was that it's 2017 and there's hoverboards. There is a character riding a hoverboard in the back of every single shot in the offices.
What?
Did either of you catch this?
No way.
I saw a couple. I didn't know that was every scene. That's
every scene where they're in an office just talking. I think he's a mail courier because he's holding boxes a lot. He's just riding a fucking hoverboard. And I'm like, what's going on with hoverboards? That extra had a great time. I think he was like, if I'm going to be the extra on this, I have to bring my hoverboard. You have to let me.
I've been working in retail for 5 years, right? Well, no, I've been working in oh god. It's been longer than that. It's just this particular place has been 5 years. Anyway, I have seen the rise and relative fall of hoverboards. This probably was around the time that hoverboards were incredibly hot for commuters, which just like, what are you doing?
Yeah. Yep.
Get a scooter.
Get a Segway.
Yeah, I love Silicon Valley. I love the vibe. But our main inciting event is that Emily just bought a unit that got blown up by some time-traveling aliens. The first thing I wrote in my notes here was, if only there was some sort of superhero incident insurance agency that could help them with this. Alas, that's not what they are, so...
they end up doing a funny insurance gag where she says that she like didn't get a payout or whatever because since the aliens were from the future, they ruled that it technically hasn't happened yet. And that was a clever little insurance gag, I think.
So evil.
Yeah.
Like, that would happen, though.
What 6 made this your favorite episode of the show, would you say?
I think it's just the comedy and the tone is really just hitting. Like the best, one of my probably my favorite joke of the whole series is in this one, which is a very predictable joke, but just the acting execution is amazing. When they convince Van to be part of their video of like, oh, this is how the Flash got his superpowers, right? They're like, you throw chemicals on yourself and then electrocute yourself. And when he goes through it, he, like blacks out for a second and wakes up and they pretend he has gotten the powers, and they're just doing like the he's so fat. It's so funny.
I knew it the second
funny.
it happened. I felt like I could tell, because it's just like they wouldn't. If it actually had worked, they wouldn't have done the slow-mo talking. They would have slowed down the footage. Knowing it makes it funnier that like the build-up. And every second longer that it lasts, and then he finally runs out and like slaps over Jackie's papers, and she's like, "What the hell?" You know, yeah, that's the joke that I expected.
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
Yeah, I think that joke is really funny. I think the like casual like evil of like LexCorp is pretty funny. I don't know how
I feel about LexCorp Trump jokes though. That's my only.
Sure. That's
Yeah, the politics of this are fascinating in the way that they like toe a very specific line to try to only be funny and not make too much of a point, because
neoliberalism,
right, because it's like President Luthor, okay, he's golfing at Mara Luthor, got it, so he's like, we're doing a Trumpy thing, and like, I can't believe we elected this guy. And then when the main characters get bought out by LexCorp, their concern is not that they have been bought out by like a supervillain. Their concern is like, what about our work family? Which is like, again, just the most fucking like neoliberal like concept. Like, you know, your family is in the workplace and we must protect that, and, you know, depict that as like the highest good of human socialization or whatever. It was just so strange, like the stakes of this episode being based around that, and like, are we gonna all stay together? And then I liked that LexCorp is so like corporate in like a normal, recognizable way. That felt like there was something to that. Yeah. And it also feels like there's something to the fact that, you know, someone who's like willing to work for Bruce Wayne is equally willing to work for Lex Luthor. And there's like a point there that Bruce Wayne and Lex Luthor are in this society structurally similar in that they are billionaires who own these like multinational conglomerates or whatever. But it just felt it felt odd to me that, you know, we do this whole like Lex Luthor is Trumpy. Oh, the GOP isn't going to impeach him. But also the characters are like, yay, we get to wear the Lex Luthor bathrobes. This is so great to be working for the bad guy. Yeah, so it's kind of a politically strange episode to me.
It's definitely politically strange. I think there's a bit of unintentional Seinfeld going on here, right? Where like I don't think the show thinks that these people are good people. I don't think the creators recognize how bad of people they are. Right. But like with that in my head, it's like, oh no, sure, of course, this is not a problem. These are all pretty bad people. And like I really liked the subversion of like the tension, right? When they show up and they're like, hey, listen, you know, I guess we're all just going to get replaced, and we're showing up just to be fired, and here are a bunch of like actor lookalikes we've hired, not like super alike, but that bit is reasonably
close
funny
enough.
And then they show up and the guy's like, why would we buy out a division and then not keep the employees? That's all the division is. I feel like that's a good subversion. I don't know. I definitely think the Trump stuff is very weird and uncomfortable, but like, I don't know. I like, y'all have talked about doing Death Note from time to time. Death Note has a bonus chapter about Trump buying the Death Note. I mean, like, sometimes things you like in fiction just do bad stuff, and you kind of just have to pretend you didn't see it.
Yeah.
But that chapter is interesting.
I think you hit on the part of it that feels difficult for me to square, which is that on the one hand we're doing this story where it's like a satirical thing of, look at these people who are so like bought into the corporate system that they're not batting an eye at like working for Lex Luthor and at the way that LexCorp operates. And on the other end of it, you're also saying that like we really need to care about the like interpersonal relationships between these people and like their love for each other, and they are a family. And
weird.
like, you know, Seinfeld had the presence of mind to say no hugging and no learning, because like you can't tell a story about reprehensible people being reprehensible and then have them all get together at the end of the episode and be like, oh guys, we did it, we all stayed together. Because like you just, those two ends go against each other thematically, tonally, I think. So that was the part that was kind of odd for me to square in this one.
You guys are both making really great points. I mean, I feel like I don't have too much more to contribute because a lot of my notes are just jokes again.
What do you got?
I think though that like this, before I dive into those, this depicts a version of Powerless that's just a like absurdist comedy of the likes of a Better Off Ted. And going back to the point you made earlier, Magellan, the difference is that like Better Off Ted like prioritizes Ted's outside of office life. Like, yeah, he has a romance and everybody here is like friends, but they're also like clearly coworkers. Whereas in Powerless, it's like there's nobody outside. We never see any of these people's exteriority except for Jackie's daughter. That's the only, and like Ron talks about his grandmother in the next episode, but otherwise, no, that they don't. These are the only people that matter in our lives. Which just like is weird to me, but I think that a future Powerless with more seasons that just is like we work in an office and crazy DC stuff happens would be pretty good actually. If they did more.
Well, I think also, you know, a hallmark of, to me, some of my favorite workplace comedies, Better Off Ted, I don't know what else goes in there, Parks and Rec or something, is like shows that have a pretty nuanced understanding of status relationships within a workplace, like who gets along with whom, who is kind of intimidated by whom. Okay, this person's my superior, and so I hide certain things from them. Or like you could always tell in the Better Off Ted example that like Lem and Phil, the scientist guys, were scared of Portia de Rossi's boss, like their boss's boss. Like they were intimidated by her. And I think what's also kind of odd to me about how Powerless is trying to construct this like family ensemble thing is that it just really flattens those status relationships and tries to put everybody on the same plane in a way that just doesn't quite read. Like Teddy and Ron wouldn't hang out with Van. They wouldn't be his friends because the way that the workplace is structured wouldn't make that make sense. And sometimes they do these sort of half-hearted, you know, Teddy will say one thing and then he's like, just kidding, boss, I'm totally going to do the thing you want me to do. But it never quite feels like this lived in and well understood status relationship among the characters. And I think that's another part of it that just feels strange to me, is like you could say that Emily is everybody's boss. You could say that Christina Kirk's character is everybody's boss. You could say that Teddy is everybody's boss. And like these scenes don't change a whole lot, which I think is just a mark of how this ensemble is like not quite structured in a way that makes sense.
Well, and it's a danger. I mean, like, I think this is certainly worse than other examples, but I think it's a problem that all office like sitcoms have, which is, I mean, again, a thing you've talked about before, but like, no, this isn't your family. You have a family, and maybe it's not even your blood family. Maybe your family is a group of friends you're very close to, and your blood family you don't talk to anymore. Your work family is not your family. Don't do this. This is like toxic work culture. This is the same like stuff they tell you in like training for your job so that you won't sue them. Don't buy this crap.
Yeah,
so go ahead, Alan.
Like I said, Jackie only has her daughter. Van has his outside life. But otherwise, we don't even see, like, Ron and Teddy being like, oh, do you want to go play games later? Like, just do something outside of work. Talk about something besides work. Like, I feel bad that Emily moved to Charm City and doesn't seem to have any friends or community yet beyond her work. And I understand that's how sometimes people start to find the community. But, like, the more that they build this relationship between all of these characters, the more I feel sad that they don't have anything else. It's like, wow, this really is it for you guys. And, like, I know people like this whose culture and community is entirely defined by work, and it's a bummer.
I mean, you know, Teddy's apparently got his podcast, So he's doing just about as well as I am.
Alan, how do you feel about that as a podcaster yourself?
Teddy Talks, yeah. First of all, woof, TED Talks. Second of all, what's the structure of it? This will be a funnier joke today. Every fucking dimbo on TikTok has like a sure SM7B and like, oh, I talk about how women are stupid and they like do a thing. That's their podcast. But his is a video thing where he pranks people and films it. That's not a podcast. Just call it a YouTube channel. Just call it a YouTube channel. What do you mean it's a podcast? Just use
nothing about this that was a podcast.
Well,
and this use the word podcast.
It ties into a thing that this episode does as a joke that they should have done seriously and also much earlier in the show. This show is, it's a very common thing in this, style of like, not just sitcom, but, it's like, okay, these are our characters. They will never develop. They might learn a lesson in an episode. Don't worry, they'll forget it next week. And like, this episode has things happen to people. Like with Teddy, it's like, okay, apparently you're a podcaster and this is a part of your life. And like, that's not a change. That's just us learning something. But you could have that be part of his character going forward. You have Wendy, who spends 2 years in a medieval kingdom becoming a warlord. And that doesn't change.
My favorite gag.
That was pretty good.
Yeah.
But like, imagine if like we got like, another season of this show and suddenly part of Wendy's character is that sometimes she just goes into warlord mode for a minute.
That's so
right?
good.
Or
Or sometimes Jackie just gets her work done quickly because she's like, oh, sorry, super speed, my bad. Jackie got super speed in this episode.
Yeah.
That's
And
wacky.
it's like, you are using the concept of character development as a joke, and that's a sign of a real problem.
Yeah. Do the character development. It's okay. It's not like universe changing. I think this is a DC universe where your coworker can have super speed and that's just kind of weird, but it doesn't change the world. Like, we have the Flash. We have like all the whole Speed Force and all the people who do all the speed things. Just let Jackie have the super speed. Let Wendy be a former barbarian princess and now she goes back to her day job and she has rich parents. Like, I think that if they committed to that would be so cool for a season 2.
And it would add a degree of like the comic like eccentricity and extraness that this show lacks, except for when suddenly they just like shove it in your face, right?
Every episode should be this ridiculous.
Right.
The
and
DC
like,
universe is ridiculous.
Like, these characters should have ridiculous things about their lives that in universe no one thinks is ridiculous, right?
Yeah. That goes right back
that's
to
the whole
pilot.
point of doing this. Yeah.
Like, if you're going to do the whole, like, oh, sorry, my train's late, the guy threw it off of the Brooklyn Bridge. It's like, okay, if that's quotidian, then so should people having superpowers. Like, okay, in the DC universe, it's not everyone. It's not My Hero Academia, but, like, yeah, it's statistically likely that one out of every 1,000 people has a power of some sort, even if it's useless. But yes, this was most definitely supposed to be the series finale when everybody gets together at the end. At least we still have each other. We're not replaced here and we get to keep doing our job, maybe. Or maybe we're actually supposed to be fired. I don't know. We'll find out. That's the button that the show should end on. ... And then it's not the ending that we watched.
Yeah.
Win, Luthor, draw. Definitely a cool episode. I liked all the jokes at Emily's exploded apartment. That was a weird like CG set that they made. My favorite.
So no, I'm
Aruba?
sure it's the same one. Yes.
That's so good. So fucking. The Rush, she's like, everything in my life is left. And now I have this. I'm like, oh, you have so much like light, natural light, because there's one wall missing. All I have left is my fucking robot vacuum. And the robot vacuum just slowly glides off of the building. And then they're like, no, don't do it. Don't follow him. Now my robot vacuum committed suicide. George Lucas could never. Magellan,
I think you'll find.
I think you'll find he would super do that. Magellan, do you have any stray notes?
Emily had a really great cat sweater at one point.
Oh,
Mhm.
yeah.
And,
She
and
got
Adam
from...
West is like, and Adam West is like, Catwoman.
Cute.
That was funny.
Very
Cute. I really like the Mr. Megorium bit.
It went a little long. No, yeah, where Ron is like, why would they name the movie that? He's got a Wonder Emporium.
Well,
of
yeah,
course that's his name.
I like, it's like one of the few pop culture references in the show I like, where the LexCorp guy is like, why would we buy the Emporium and fire Mr. Megorium? I thought that was funny.
Fun delivery.
Yeah.
Six, you got anything else?
Yeah, I think that's most of my stuff on this episode. It's just a lot of like, I think it is the show pretty close to at its best, and in ways that they're only allowing themselves to do because it's the finale, and it's like, why did you have these limiters in place in the first place?
Take the limiters off.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, any last nits?
Nope.
I just combined the words notes and bits into nits, which sounds inappropriate somehow.
It's a thing that you pick, you know.
Oh! Before I take us to the musical break, I want to quickly read an email that we got from friend of the podcast, Pat. It's a short one, so I just figured I would slot it in here before we go to break. Pat says, the subject line is Real Friends, Fake Script Doctors, which is excellent. Hello, Chatz Pod. Half of Brothers at Infinite War here. Just finished listening to episode 1 of Chatz covering Powerless. I wanted to mention that my girlfriend and I looked forward to and enjoyed Powerless back when the episodes were airing in 2017. I often described it as the you got your chocolate in my peanut butter of 2017 shows, where it isn't mixed Community and The Office. It was the carefree show of that time in my life. I love the pod, especially Chatz Nights. Thank you, Pat. Yeah, this idea of the Powerless is the Community meets The Office, but lesser than the sum of its parts, right?
Yeah, I could see that. And I think if I watched this in 2017, there's a lot about this show that, like, part of what I'm not loving about it is just how shows worked at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think if I was watching it at the time, it wouldn't quite strike me as like as much something that felt kind of, I don't know, tired or, you know, the ways that I feel about it. But I could definitely see watching it in the moment and being like, yay, Powerless is on. I'll watch 20 minutes of it. And now it's not on anymore. Okay. Next week.
Yeah. One of these a week would be totally chill, actually.
Yeah.
And it's also a very different thing to watch stuff, you know, like for like, you know, sitting down, paying close attention, taking notes.
Yes.
Right.
That's not how they intend you to watch the show. They want you sitting there, you know, with a bag of chips, you know, like talking to someone else, right? And like
Yeah.
that doesn't mean like you're wrong to do criticism on it. In fact, the fact that it can't hold up to it, it's still a sign that the show is weak in that way. But you know, we watch weak shows sometimes, right?
Yeah. I think there's also something to like when you watch a weak show, sometimes you root for it. Like when you're watching it at the time, and because we are watching with the benefit of knowing or the curse of knowing that it gets canceled. And so I feel like it always kind of leaks into our conversations of like, ugh, and they're not going to address this, or like, it's not going to get much better than this because we know that there's a finality to it. But I've definitely watched shows that were not great, and I was like, okay, I'm with you. I'm going to hang with you while you figure this out. I am rooting for you, and I hope that the show gets better, because like that happens. There are plenty of shows that find their sea legs after 12, 13 episodes, after a season, after 2 seasons, and become, you know, cult darlings. And it's possible that Powerless could have done that. And I can also see, like, in 2017, rooting for the DC Universe Office sitcom with the quirky cast that's, like, figuring it out. And let's see if they can do it. And it would be cool if this could become a great show. And
Yeah.
it just didn't.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll loop back to it as we wrap up. But, like, I think if Powerless had been given a lot more time, you could be like, oh, the first like season is just kind of stupid sitcom stuff, but then they really clicked into like what made it awesome, and it got very memorable and good. But they didn't get there. I was trying to see what I was watching and like getting into in summer of 2017, just for context of like why wasn't I watching Powerless? Again, I mentioned this before. We were in last Chatspender, so we're watching good TV over here. 2017, a year that I listened to 103 albums. Was I okay? Why was I listening to so much music? Yeah, different time and place. That's the moral of the story. And Pat, thank you for shouting out Chatz Nights, which you can listen to at patreon.com/chatspod. It's our monthly hangout show where we just kind of shoot the shit and talk about stuff.
Oh man, 2017 was Princess Principal. That I was like, what are we doing in anime? Which was what I was watching. I was like, oh man, 2017 was all right.
Yeah, didn't you relaunch Oops in 2017?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good era. Good freaking era for Oopsie. I was on Oops in 2017.
Yeah.
Baby Steps. Oh man, we should watch more Baby Steps.
Baby Steps is so good.
Anyways,
chat steps.
Chatsy Steps. How about that? Bring it all home.
Ooh.
While we plan out that fictional season of a podcast, we'll be right back with the second half of this season of this episode. What? We'll be right back after this with the finale of Powerless.
Welcome back to Chatzerless, the third and final episode we watched this week, and the final episode of Powerless ever was Powerless episode 12, Van of the Year, written by Lillian Yu and directed by Michael Weaver. It aired, this says May 26th, but who knows what that means. It didn't even air.
It aired,
I don't know.
kind of. Oh, no.
It came out. We watched it. Alan, what happened in Van of the Year?
In this episode, Emily deals with Van stealing credit for her generosity at the office. And meanwhile, Teddy pushes Ron to get his new invention to the masses. Folks...
It's the Toyota Sienna, by the way.
What is the invention?
Van of the Year. I would say specifically the XLE that's going to be starting at just over $42,000. You've got power tilt, moonroof with sunshade, soft text trimmed seats. Just what a van. What a van.
Of 2017.
They make this joke in the episode.
Do they?
Someone looks at a crossword, and Van's like, "Hey, I was in the crossword," and they go, "It's like, what's the best four-wheel vehicle?"
Yeah, you're right. And it's
how do we
bus,
feel
not van.
about the 2017 Chrysler Pacifica?
Banana.
I don't trust Chrysler.
It gets 28 miles on the highway.
The Sienna gets 36.
Well, all right.
I love this podcast.
Hey, fair play.
Okay,
listen,
Van
good
of the
games.
Year.
Good games.
Good games. GG's. Rematch later. I barely took any notes on this.
Yeah, I wrote almost nothing for this episode.
Yeah, it's pretty mediocre. I think it is absurd in the right ways, like with the whole woman having the tentacle arm for most of the episode because of an incident. Can either of you explain to me what happened with the Emily and Van plot? Like, what was the inciting incident?
Okay.
Yeah.
So, what happens here is the most senior employee is having a retirement party. She's getting ready to leave. The retirement party is really disrespectful and underwhelming. Emily's like, we need to respect our employees more than this. They're all family around here. Van is like, that's stupid. She tries to do a bigger deal out of it. And while that's happening, the supervillain flies by and shoots a beam at Van. Van hides behind this lady, and her arm gets transformed into a tentacle. Van, in order to avoid being sued for clearly like shoving an employee in the way of a beam, is like, no, definitely, she took a bullet for me, and of course I'll bribe her. This sounds great. So they do another bigger, retirement party. And corporate gets word of this, and he gets a big award for his generosity, even though it was all Emily.
That's kind of stupid.
Well, and the ultimate lesson is Emily take credit for things, basically.
Right, because she's the one who's like, I guess the lesson is like, I shouldn't be so greedy and actually stick to what I said. And it's like, no. Like, hold on. You did a good thing, and you should have been thanked for it. They lean hard into the absurdity of all the things Van gets are all the things that Emily wants. Classic TV writing thing. Give somebody else the thing that you want. That's how you incite jealousy. But it's like, I didn't know that Emily wanted these things. Some guy literally, speaking of tell don't show, one of this like random British guy comes in and it's like, oh, Van, you're amazing, I'm gonna take you out to dinner. And then Jackie literally has to go, hey, Emily, isn't that your idol and the guy who you look up to? And it's like, wait, who is that? Why did we what the fuck is this?
Right.
It's one of those things because, like, I don't, sitcoms and stuff, I don't go here, right? And so I never know how much credit to give them on, like, oh no, there's part of the joke style of this kind of show of, like, isn't it funny how little setup we do for this in advance? Because the kind of shows I like, this would just be called bad storytelling.
Sure. No, I think it is bad storytelling.
It is bad storytelling. Yeah.
you can do this kind of moment in like without context. I know I reference it a lot because it is my template for like sitcom comedy. But The Simpsons could do something that's like, hey Homer, isn't that guy gonna give you $1 million? Oh, $1 million! And like I don't need to know why he got $1 million. It's just funny that like a random guy handed Homer $1 million.
Sure,
because he was just standing in the right place at the right time. They don't.
Yeah, like
I don't expect context.
Yeah, The Simpsons could do the thing that happens to Ron, where the rich guy's like, I could write you a check that'll change your life. And in The Simpsons, it's like, oh, fuck, that's so funny. And in this show, it's like, come on. And I couldn't tell you what exactly the difference is, but it's different somehow.
Because he's not going to get it. And like, the show like makes fun of its characters a lot. It like puts them down a lot and doesn't give them the things they want usually. So whenever they're about to get something they want, you're like, this isn't real. You have to occasionally give them things for this to work.
Well, and the other thing is, Simpsons, like this show, and like a lot of others of, like the sitcom-y, genre, are like, there's the gravity of the status quo, right? We start the episode with things in a certain place, and they will almost always be back there by the end of the episode. Even if, Bart invented this drone and got the check, he would lose the check somehow, right?
Yeah.
But like, in The Simpsons, you like the status quo. That's part of why it's good, is it's like, would this show be better if Bart was suddenly a billionaire? No, it's a funny thing to think about, but it's way funnier for him to be this, obnoxious kid. And I feel like the day-to-day status quo of Wayne's security is desperately in need of a shakeup at all times. I don't want to go back to that status quo.
That's a good point.
I think that's part of the reason you don't have as many sitcoms like this. And when they do exist, they're successful because they can do a little bit of build. They can do a little bit of heart in character moments, whereas this show is not allowed to have that much heart. And when it tries to, it's saccharine as hell. So, I don't know. Contrarian takes maybe, but the show doesn't exactly invite you to meet it on its own terms all the time. Couple of bad jokes. I didn't have that many positive jokes from this one, honestly. Van makes a recurring Borat joke. He doesn't even have a wife. Why does he get to say my wife? You get to hear Alan Tudyk say my wife.
This is so 2017.
Absolutely. Further 2017-ness, as I mentioned earlier. Van says he got a bet with somebody. He got a dentist to shoot a lion, referencing the killing of Cecil the lion in 2015. Where were we that this was like the most important thing in news? Crimson Fox comes back for 2 seconds there at the end. I thought that was kind of fun. I remember when she was dead in the unaired pilot for 30 seconds.
I do I don't think it's good. I think it's honestly just like bad framing, but it plays out as funny when she comes in and like punches a thug and the camera immediately pans to another thug who clearly doesn't notice.
It's like Arkham Asylum shit. Like, huh? What was that? Would have loved to see more Crimson Fox if the show went on longer. And my last anti-joke, Wendy, when trying to comfort the woman whose hand gets turned into a tentacle, says that they would love it in Japan, and yeah, I'm dying. I want to leave. And like, what's funny about that one is that nobody reacts. Like, the camera like lingers for half a second and then just like moves on. But again, you guys are giving the actress who plays Wendy the worst jokes in the show. So this A plot to me was mostly dull. It's just Emily being jealous, Van being arrogant. We know these bits, and we get a B plot that has a little bit more potential. Ron is for some reason catfishing his grandma to make her happy, I guess. So he develops a drone for her that takes selfies for you when you're confident, so that she doesn't have to use a phone.
Sorry. Hearing you like explain this plot in a sentence. Go ahead. But it's just like you can't establish this entire platform in like 30 seconds, which is what they do. And he has to basically say, "Hey, Teddy, here's my plot for the episode. I got a grandma. I'm doing this.
We know the grandma. I'm
feel this way
her.
about it. They got this thing," and it just is so much invention of story, like before the characters have even felt something or interacted with each other. That at least for me, like it goes through a set of beats that make sense, and Ron kind of like meets the moment and gets nervous and learns like, hey, I make cool stuff and maybe they deserve to have a wider audience or something. Like, sure, that's all fine. That all makes sense as a sitcom plot. But to start with so much like contrivance up top, it made it hard for me to connect with this in any meaningful way.
I mean, it's very much the like, and I say this, I love this show, right? And I know y'all are fans around here, but it's very much the like, oh, where like, second scene of the episode, we're coming in on Dr. Cox and we're about to find out what his deal is going to be for this episode.
Yeah.
It's also very funny to me because I saw the beginning of this and you're like, oh, he's catfishing his grandma with this drone. And I saw the whole plot laid out before me of how this was going to go. And I was like, all right, whatever, we can do this. Right. And then they didn't do that. I was like, oh, I thought this was going to be about like, oh no, Teddy, what do I do? She wants to meet in person. And instead it's about how like, listen, no one appreciates your inventions. You work at an inventing firm. That's what you're paid to do. Right. Like, this isn't like, oh, your hidden talent. This is literally your job.
Yeah, well, and it's also this second episode in the season where they've sort of done something where, because they did the one where Emily entered Teddy into the contest. And that was like a different kind of thing because Teddy obviously engaged with that much differently than Ron does here. But it's a similar premise of like, what do we do with the invention guys when it's like their turn to have an episode? I guess they invent stuff good and people don't notice that.
Just take these writers and make them watch a couple of seasons of Dexter's Lab and come back to me.
Didi.
I was talking about Dexter's Lab yesterday.
That was a decent Dexter. My sister also does a good Dexter. Fun fact of all the weird character details I've slowly revealed about my sister. Didi. Should we do a Dexter's Lab podcast instead?
I would dress up as Mandark for that.
I would guess that sounds all right.
Oh hell yes. Okay.
Okay, but also double feature with Powerpuff Girls. Sorry, please continue.
Oh yeah, Gandhi Tartakovsky.
Sure. My favorite thing about Mandark is that he's evil because his parents were hippies, and that's kind of fun.
True, and they told him he was a girl and he wanted to be a boy. That's why I joke that he's transgender.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Yeah, it's a common headcanon or whatever. Anyways. Can you tell that we don't want to talk about the last episode of Powerless?
There's nothing to say. Like, especially coming after, like
a pretty good episode
is up.
The finale.
Like, with a bunch of stuff to say, and then there's this like not finale, this filler episode basically that ended up getting. And I know the way people use filler is kind of bullshit, but like,
yeah,
nothing happens and there's nothing to say.
Mm-hmm. I guess I have one more note about the Teddy Ron stuff, which is that the selfies look really good. And I think they took good. I wonder if they actually used a drone to take those selfies.
Well, and I also do think there is a good, like, there is a bit of a good conversation, a tiny bit of a good conversation that happens at the end of this, where Ron's like, I went along with this because it seems like you're unhappy that I'm happy.
Yeah.
And exactly. So you're like, oh, you're right. I guess I'll pretend to be like exasperated with my situation because otherwise you won't respect me. Like, that's real shit right there.
That's a terrible friend thing to say. Yeah, true. It's a little bit of character development that I didn't expect to get from those two. I had a point we were talking about like sitcoms, right? And I'm thinking about like the best sitcoms, the most well-regarded sitcoms of the 2010s. Your Parks and Recs, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Modern Family, Fresh Off the Boat, Insecure, Blackish, Community, The Good Place, Schitt's Creek. These are shows where characters have inciting incidents every week that make sense because of what we've established about their characters in previous episodes. And they react in turn, and we watch comedic, repercussions occur until things are wrapped up in a nice tidy bow, and we do it again the next week until we die. This show, Powerless, doesn't always have like an inciting incident. Like, why does Ron do we just establish? Ron just comes in and just says, "Hey, Grandma, I'm catfishing my grandma, and I'm going to make her a drone." Also, we've decided that now my character flaw is I'm too shy to show people my inventions. Have we ever established that that's the kind of guy that Ron was before? I don't really feel like we have. And so it just invents character when there should have already been character. It just pulls inciting incidents out of its butt. And I think that's why it's so unengaging. ultimately, is these episodes sometimes just feel like they're inventing concepts for the sake of an episode.
Right.
But that's basically Powerless. I mean, it ends on a tender, not a tender, somewhat cute Emily Jackie moment, where they basically almost have a friendly bit and then don't. Sixty pointed out that the last line of Powerless is the word no.
So here's the thing: is Vein of the Year is, like, including the unaired pilot, the 4th episode they produced, right? If you look at production codes.
Oh.
If you actually look at production codes, it tells a story, because here is what our last 5 episodes are in order. Like, you know, basically episode 8 through 12, right?
Okay.
We have Emergency Punch Up, then Van versus Emily, then Green Furious, then No Consequence Day, then Win, Luthor, Draw. They were figuring it out.
They were cooking.
Right.
They were getting there.
Yeah.
Wow. They were totally cooking.
Like, you couldn't tell because they're so shuffled up and there's so much bad shit just shoved in the middle of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it makes me wonder if this episode was kind of like dumped later in the order because they like needed to forward better episodes to try to get ratings or something. I don't know how much calculation happens there, but given that there's such a drastic difference between like the production order of this particular episode and of when it aired, it feels like, because everything else production codes wise is like more or less only a couple off from where it aired in the order, but this is like
they made this before they made Sinking Day.
Like
it's a way better episode, huh? Interesting.
It's an interesting observation.
And it makes me think about why they order them the way that they do.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why do they air them the way that they do? Yeah, I think, to wrap up here, Powerless, a bummer of a show in some ways, but a really interesting peer into the world of 2010 sitcom writing and how so many shows like this exist, start, and nobody hears about them, and we just move on. And Ben Queen, pitching this show, gets his last shot at the Ben Queeniverse. He rounds up the cast of people that like him and like the work that he puts in, and then lets the show go and hopes that it figures itself out with a team of generally pretty talented writers, I would say. I look at the list of writers and directors on this and I go, yeah, these are people who've worked on good TV before. We've got Scrubs people. We've got all sorts of sitcom people. And the show mostly flops. The DC connection doesn't wrangle in enough people. The comedy doesn't, make it very viral on the internet or anything. No one's posting clips of Powerless funny moments. And it exists in this weird intersection of streaming television also. So what is a network sitcom to do in 2017 but flounder slowly until it just kind of dies out? I think it's a bummer, but it's also, as are every show in 13 Under 13, just a fascinating case study in what can go wrong when you're making a show with a good premise. Do you guys have any final thoughts on Powerless or why we think it failed?
I think... Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I think there's a lot of, like, I've mentioned the lack of love that I felt, but I also, like, with this, like, production order thing, I think there's a lot of, like, learning to lean into... You have this premise about, like, living in a city with superheroes and supervillains, and so often they're actually going pretty far out of their way to make sure they don't show up, and leaning the other way is a very simple solution that was starting to pay dividends, and it's too bad they didn't get to try more.
Most definitely. John?
Yeah, I think I'm with 6 on that they just don't, like, so many, especially of the early episodes, felt like they were scripts that you could have cut and paste into like a different context and a different world, and you would have done the same thing. Like, this felt like a very, I don't know what the idiom is, but like a bog standard office comedy. You've got some like kind of common archetypes, and they're going to bounce off of each other in ways that you would predict and expect. and that's the show. And I think there were definitely moments where they like differentiated themselves from that, and the most joyful things to me were the moments of absurdism and like referencing DC stuff in an inventive and creative way, as opposed to like pop culture reference time as a joke, which I didn't love. And I think, you know, the last kind of thing I want to say about it is just the thing that I think we always have to say with these 13 under 13 shows, which is like, we talked about this having a little community in it, or that's what Pat said. And like, if you looked at just lopped off the first 12 episodes of Community, like it's not there, you know, it's not quite cooking. There are some like great moments that are better than the great moments of this show. I think it's clearer that something is developing, but by no means is it at all what that show becomes by the end of the first season and in the second and the third, when it like transcends where it started. And who knows what they could have figured out here. They didn't figure it out in time, which is a bummer. And it feels a little hollow to have total confidence that they could have. But, you know, there's a spark of something that it would have been nice to see a little bit more of, I think.
I think this is another, you know, this is a thing you've talked about before. I won't harp on it, but just another clear example of just like a victim of corporate impatience.
Yeah, definitely.
Right. Let's hurry up and get the show to where it needs to be and shove it out the door. See if it's good. It's usually not in those cases. But yeah, I think we're saying some of the stuff that we've said on most of 13 under 13, which is like, damn, there was potential. And I know we've harped on this show a lot, but like legitimately this show could have worked and lasted with the right crew behind it and the right writing and everything. A lot of things would have had to go right, but it wasn't meant to be. But hey, next week we're going to be beginning Chatz season 16, discussing shows in the bracket that you helped create over on our Google form. Thank you to everybody who voted. We, in the current present of this recording, don't know what is in the seed right now, but we're excited. I've seen a lot of good stuff make or seed highly, which makes me happy and excited. So yeah, you'll see it in your feeds, I guess, or we can potentially record a little post thing.
Yeah, and so we'll I think the way that it'll probably go is next Sunday you'll hear an episode where we'll talk about like how we picked the shows that went into the initial 32, what ended up being on the bracket of 16. We'll kind of talk about our predictions and things like that. So there'll be sort of a launch episode of the season. And then the week after that, we will take a brief break in order to do, like, we won't take a week off. I mean, we'll take a break from season 16 to do Trek Chatz 6. And then we will begin the actual working through of the bracket the following week. So in about 3 weeks from now, we'll start actually releasing those matchup episodes.
Fabulous. I'm looking forward to it. 6, thank you again for taking the time.
Yeah,
being on Chatz.
Delight to be here. Yeah.
You want to plug your stuff for folks?
Sure. You know, I'm going to give you a relatively large plug zone compared to my usual shtick. So,
yay.
Easiest way to find me is on Twitter. I'm at Sixdetmar, SAXDETTMAR. I keep my DMs open for any questions, comments, requests, anything like that for any Scanline works. And there are a lot of those. So scanlinemedia.com or patreon.com/scanlinemedia. I do a bunch of podcasts. You should check out Oopsal Anime. We're watching anime. Oopsal Manga is its manga equivalent. Iris and Audio, we watch movies. Novel Not New is our monthly game club podcast where we're checking out story games. We do a whole bunch of stuff, and we would greatly appreciate your support. And, you know, support can take many forms. Just listening and appreciating is appreciated by us as well.
I love that. And as I mentioned before, I'm on a bunch of those as well. So you can hear Alan's voice on shows with my friend Six here.
I didn't mention any of them because I figured you'd take care of it. So.
Right. Garnet Wager, Creature Quorum, and sometimes Oopsal Anime and sometimes Oopsal Manga, depending on the season. Depending on what you're watching or reading. Let's take it to the plug zone before we do Chatsums. Magellan, where can people find you on the podcast sphere?
You can find me on another podcast that I do with my friend Justin called Super Smash Echoes, where we play video games related to the Super Smash Brothers franchise, Super Smash Echoes. And you can read my writing on Substack, notthatmagellan.substack.com. Alan, what about you?
As I aforementioned, scanlinemedia.com, Creature Quorum, Garnet Wager. I'm also the host of Talking Marketing, a bi-monthly marketing discussion podcast found at amaboston.org. I'll do the Chatz plugs in real quickly this week, Michelle, if that's cool with you, buddy.
Cool. Works for me.
So our email is chatspod@gmail.com. Our Twitter is @chatspod until we get accepted to Blue Sky. We are Chatz at Television Podcast on YouTube. And if you like the show, please consider supporting us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc. to help get the name out there. Chatz, get people on the book club train, the TV book club train. And if you have the financial means, patreon.com/chatspod is where you can support us at $1, $3, or $5 a month. You get bonus content. You get to vote on what we do. You get access to our cool Discord. Or if you just ask nicely, you get access to that Discord. And at $5 or more, you get thanked at the end of every main feed episode. So as of today, thank you to Arthur, Emrys, Jen, Justin, Kat, Lee, Magellan's mom, Marcus, May Louise, Michael, Nick and Pat of the Brothers at Infinite War, 6, and Stefan. Hi. All things Chatz can be found at chatspod.com. Our podcast main feed art was done by Camilla. She can be found at Camilla Strader on all the podcast or on all the social media platforms. I don't think she does a podcast unless I'm mistaken. Taking it home, we do a final segment here called Chatsims, where each host gives some things to recommend between now and the next episode of the show. 6 as our delighted, lovely, wonderful guest who we're honored to have. Please tell me what your Chatsims are this week.
Well, thank you so much. So, as a thank you for letting me go first, I'll let you have the easy Chatsum that we both share. And instead, I'll talk to you about probably my favorite computer game certainly of the modern era. It's called Total War 3 Kingdoms. Now, it's a cool game set in the Three Kingdoms period, a classic Chinese novel, bunch of drama, bunch of, warfare and backstabbing. But I'm actually not here for the game itself. I'm here to recommend Trom plus Tup Campaign Overhaul. So, for a long time, with Total War 3 Kingdoms, there were a couple of rival mods that did really cool things to revamp the game. There was Make Them Unique, there was Wu King Daisance, all these things, right? And they didn't play nice with each other.
Mm-hmm.
It was all you pick your poison, and you're always going to be missing out on something. And then the people making Total War 3 Kingdoms, Relic, announced they were not going to work on the game anymore. They were moving on. And they announced it surprisingly early for their history of supporting games. And so most of the modders also moved on, and we didn't get any more updates for those things. But thank you to Steam user and creator Beans, sorry, that's just the name, Beans, who was like, no one's updating these anymore, which means they're not changing, which means I can just take all of these mods and modify them so they all play nice together. So Tron plus Tup Campaign Overhaul takes Make Them Unique and the Total Unique pack and the Rule of Might and all these other mods and smushes them all together so they all work together and just are a huge revamp to the art, to the story, to the mechanics of this game. You can get bios for any of these historical figures just popped up and telling you who they actually were in history. It's fantastic.
This is now the second Total War 3 Kingdoms chatsum that you've made on the podcast. Back on Studio 60 on the Sunset Chats episode 8, you recommended the A World Betrayed DLC. So it's good to know that you're still enjoying the game and recommending parts of it for people.
Yeah, no, this is a free mod, but I think you probably, I don't think actually you need the DLC for it to function, now that I think about it.
That was 2 years ago. That's March of 2021.
It's a good game.
Studio 60 on the Sunset Chats is the most gas leak season of chats I think has ever existed. What were we on in that one? I'll just briefly give mine then. The one that Six is referring to, of course, is the newly released Street Fighter 6. Holy crap, you guys! We love Zelda here at Chats, and we're still playing it, but Street Fighter 6 dropped like a fucking lead weight, and it's so smooth. The online play is so good. Having the Scanline Media people as your friends means that you're just going to naturally legally be obligated to get into fighting games. It just happens, even if you don't think you like them. And nothing makes me more happy than just like getting on late at night or on a weekend in the Discord. We're playing, we're throwing down. There's no stakes. The new characters are great. The old characters feel better than ever. Fighting games are back, baby. And Street Fighter 6 is currently, I'm smitten with it. So that's my wholehearted Chatz. And I wanted to briefly shout out the Disney Plus American Born Chinese show, the adaptation of the book. I'm going to be talking about that on another Chatz thing soon that I'm not ready to announce until it's done. But yeah, the show is pretty good. And the original book is pretty good as well. So I'll give you a double Chatsum for Jean Deluany Yang's original graphic novel and the Disney Plus series. But John, are you still awake? Are you still there? Are you still conscious, bud?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Can you give me a Chatsum this week?
I finally watched the Mario movie. It was cute.
Oh? What was your favorite part of it?
I wasn't in a great mood when I watched it, so I don't think that's super fair to the movie, but I was excited for Charlie Day's turn as Luigi, and I gotta say he didn't disappoint. I thought he did a great job bringing some pathos, some wide-eyed wonder, a little bit of flavor, but not too much. I thought he played it absolutely perfectly. So
Excellent.
Charlie Day's Luigi, that's my standout part of the Mario movie, and all the little like platforming kind of jokes and stuff they're doing. That was fun.
I'm looking forward to it. It's
you haven't seen it
now. I can just watch. No, I haven't seen it, but it's on streaming now. I could just watch it.
It's a kids animated movie that happens to have Mario in it, so that's what the deal is.
Excellent. Mario movie. Great. Well, thanks again to Six for being here, and thank you to both of you for being my work family, because we stick
let's
together.
Restart the clock.
Let's
We're happy to announce that we are watching Studio 60 for our next season.
Again. Rewind.
until Superman rewinds the clock back.
I mean, season 16, Studio 16 on the Sunset Strip.
I mean, listen, I'm just gonna, Alan, if you have to bleep this, I understand. Sometimes a guest comes on and puts something too cursed for you to have to live with.
Yeah. True.
But like, you didn't put West Wing on the tournament.
Yeah, it was a big oversight on our part.
It was a big oversight.
But that's because we're announcing right now that we are going to be starting a daily West Wing podcast. So
day 17, still haven't watched any.
Yeah, we just start doing Truck Chats daily. So we say, "Did you watch any today?" Nope. All right, bye.
That's actually an amazing idea for a TV podcast where there's no expectation that you watch the show. It's just like we always check in to see if we did.
You've invented Bottle Crow, a Dota 2 podcast.
Oh, what a good way to do a show. I love that.
I hate to break the thing with Bottle Crow is that it shows what would happen if we did this is it would slowly evolve into a nightmare. Like a full-throated soundboard infected nightmare. And
turning to the audience, listen, Bottle Crow is a nightmare, but you can wake up anytime you want. We can't. Finger guns.
Help. Thanks everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Peace.
Powering down.